Hey Lab Rats, it's Kendra.
And this is Jessica, and you're listening to
Lucid Lab. We're here for our favorite time, lab reports.
number 13.
Which some say is an unlucky number, but I don't see it that way.
Me either.
I'm just happy we are this far along.
I know.
We've been going at it for almost 2 years. Our first time recording was on St. Patrick's Day 2 years ago.
Yep.
And now here this is coming out the day after St. Patty's Day.
Right? Crazy. And thank you for all of you who have stayed with us since the beginning. We don't want to talk about our week. We both had some drama.
Not anything we want to share yet.
Yeah. So we're just going to jump right into it. And I think Kendra's going to start off with a lab report from a listener.
So the first listener tale that I want to share came via email, and it was just titled Sandwich Stalker.
Oh.
So that caught my attention.
Someone who really likes sandwiches.
Hopefully is just stalking the sandwich, but I have a feeling it's more.
I have a new favorite sandwich place.
Oh yeah, where?
And they are here, but of course it's like downtown Denver, so I'm never going to go to it. But I had it in California. It's called Ike's.
I haven't heard of that.
So freaking good. They have like hundreds of sandwich options, but I guess depending on the location, they just have like 20 from the hundreds. Like, so each location has a different set of sandwiches that they do there. The one that I got was called Stephen Hawking.
So they name them after famous people?
There's not just famous people. They just all have crazy names, but that one was so good. So good. So I would also be a sandwich stalker.
Hey there, Jessica and Kendra.
Hello.
After listening to your recent episode about Randy Woodfield, I decided to write in about a scary experience I had while working fast food in my younger days.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Hearing the story of how he terrorized those poor young girls just trying to work their menial jobs brought flashbacks of the worst kind. So backstory. My name is Lainey. I live in Philadelphia. Go Birds. That's in parentheses. They did just win the Super Bowl.
Oh, Eagles. I'm like, what birds?
I am now in my 30s, slaving away to the corporate grind, but we hear you there, but we're not in our well, you're still in your 30s. I'm not in my 30s. But I was once a little 20-year-old cute thing weighing about 110 pounds on my heaviest days.
Oh.
I remember those. I was going to a local community college and working in my time off at a local sandwich shop. I was going through my emo stage and had multiple piercings in my ears, nose, navel, and eyebrow.
Brave.
Yes, I got one piercing in my navel.
Me too.
And then I had a couple in my ears.
I've only had just the simple ears, and then I had my belly button ring. But I took that out when I got pregnant.
Same. And I really do like how nose rings look. Like I could see maybe doing that one day. I have plenty of friends with nose rings, but I also am afraid I would mess with it too much.
I would probably touch it way too much.
And I hear that they can be kind of picky. I had a friend who got one and it kept getting infected. She had to take it out. So I don't know. And I also hate needles.
Yeah. My fear of needles has only increased over the years. And I think it's because when nurses try to take my blood, they can never find my veins. And so I'm constantly pricked, and it's just like for the heck of it.
Last time I got my blood drawn, I had to leave because they poked me so many times and they're like, we just can't do it. And I had to go home and try and drink a bunch of water and go back later. And then it happened to my kid, went in. And I was like, I guess it's just genetic or veins, or I don't drink enough water. I'm not sure.
But then I'll go to someone else and I'll tell them that my horrific experience with every time I go to the doctor, they can never find my vein. And she found it instantly, the last lady I went to. And she's like, you have perfect veins. I don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, do they just hide some days? Back to
Lainey
and her amazing piercings.
Yes. I kept my hair edgy, coloring it blue-black, and my clothing was all shades of black with maybe a touch of dark red. With my school schedule, I was able to work all days on Tuesday and Thursday and a couple shorter night shifts. I am the type of person who cannot help but be nice to everyone, even the occasional Karens you inevitably come across in a food service job. I did sometimes find that my friendly behaviors could be perceived as something else by some, mostly men.
Yep.
I had a few guys that asked for my number thinking I was flirting with them when I was just a girl doing my job.
Yep.
I think we've all been there.
Yes.
Even some of the guys who came in that my coworkers found to be a little creepy, I would be nice to them, almost feeling bad that others didn't want to help them out. Maybe I was naive, but at the time, I believed everyone had good qualities and that you could turn things around for someone having a bad day by being kind.
It is true.
It is true.
You are in the service industry. You're supposed to be nice.
And sometimes creepy people, or they come across as creepy, and it's just that they're really shy or introverted. They're not socially, they're socially awkward, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
But then again, there's these men who are like, oh, she's flirting with me.
I don't like it.
It's so stupid. And we can never know which ones it's safe to be nice to.
Exactly. So we have to have like a barrier around us all the time. There was this one customer. He was probably around 35 to 40 years old. Let's call him Doug. He got a sandwich at our shop every single day for lunch. He worked right around the corner at an office building. Seemed like just a typical corporate guy. My best guess would be he worked in finance or accounting. He always had his name badge card on when he came through the line. He was fascinated by my piercings and my overall emo look. He was nice enough and didn't give me any crazy vibes at first. I thought he was just curious since I was like completely opposite of what he looked like, a completely straight edge kind of guy.
The red flag for me would have been a guy who eats the same sandwich every day.
Right. Why are you there every single fucking day?
No.
That's probably why she's like, he's got to be a finance or accounting guy because they're very rigid, right?
Yeah.
Or at least that's the stereotype. Not all of you guys are rigid, I'm sure.
It's funner nowadays, I guess.
I don't know about that, but I mean, I like a good Excel spreadsheet. I can understand part of it.
I mean, sure, I like order, but it doesn't mean I actually want to do it.
I like too much variety when it comes to food. I want to eat something different every single day.
Absolutely.
He would always compliment my piercings, my jewelry, my hair, my nail polish. At first, I just thought it was someone being nice, but then it kind of took a weird turn. He had been coming in for about 2 weeks at this point, every Tuesday and Thursday that I worked. After he ordered his sandwich and paid, he would choose to sit at a table with the clearest line of sight to our work area. I could just feel him watching us.
Oh, no.
Specifically me.
Yeah.
Every time I would happen to glance in his direction, we would lock eyes.
Oh, I hate that.
It's like he never took his eyes off of me. It was unsettling, but I just tried to brush it off.
That also reminds me of like when you're somewhere public and you accidentally lock eyes.
It's the worst.
And they think, oh, she's interested. I'm
it's like, no. And then you never look at them again or you leave. That's the only thing you can do.
Right.
It's so uncomfortable. A few weeks later, he showed up one Tuesday like usual, but when I went to check him out, he mentioned something about looking online for a new nose piercing that he thought would look particularly cute on me.
Oh, stay out of my holes.
It's weird. That's really weird.
Yeah.
He was obsessing. He asked for my number so he could text me the listing he had been looking at. I thanked him, but also politely declined.
Yeah, good.
He made his lunch purchase and then proceeded to sit down and intently stare at me from his table as he had before.
He's mad because it took him 2 weeks to get the guts to ask you that, and you said no.
Probably.
How dare you?
My semester was coming to a close at that point with school, and I was able to take on more shifts. Because I just felt a little unsettled by Doug coming in, I changed my hours to work only evenings and weekends.
Okay.
That's smart.
Yeah.
One Wednesday night, I was alone in the store because my coworker was on her 30-minute lunch. We were really slow that day, so I was just in the back room messing around on my phone. I heard the door chime, looked up, and yet no one was there. Then I saw Doug walk past the front of the store really quickly, like he was in a hurry.
Oh.
Then the store phone rang.
So he came in but left?
Apparently.
Oh.
When I answered the phone, I said, "Hello, how can I help?"
Ike's Sandwich Shop.
Whatever sandwich shop, she didn't say. And then a voice said, "Is this Lainey, the girl with the sexy piercings?"
Oh, no.
And immediately I was unsettled and said, "Who is this?" And then he said, "Are you alone in the back room right now? Are you working by yourself?" At this point, I got really creeped out and I knew it was Doug. I hung up and I texted my coworker the situation so she would hurry back. He called again, this time asking me very weird questions like what I would do with him in a room if the door was locked.
Kill you.
Yeah. Slice your throat open with the meat cleaver. He asked if I had a boyfriend. Why was I playing hard to get?
Saying no is not playing hard to get.
All she did was say, "I don't want to give you my phone number." Right after I hung up with him, my coworker got back and I told her everything. We had about 2 hours until closing and she suggested we should call our manager.
Yeah.
It was about 7 p.m. at this point and our shop gets pretty busy with dinner time rush. So we never had to call my manager and everything seemed fine. No more calls from Doug. A few days later, I was working a dinner shift on a Friday night. And my manager was there this time, and Doug called in the middle of our rush hour. This time my manager answered, and to this day, she never told me what he said, but the look on her face made my spine shiver. She told him if he ever called again or showed up at the shop, she would call the police.
Oh.
I thought that was the end of it, but alas, I was wrong. 1 week later, I was clocking out and getting ready to walk to my car parked in the front when I looked outside and I saw Doug. He was standing by my car, just looking inside of it.
Oh, no.
Like an idiot, I had left a back door unlocked.
Oh, no.
I watched him crawl inside and shut the door behind him.
At least you saw that. Oh my God.
This creep was trying to hide in my fucking back seat and do God knows what to me when I got in.
That's so fucking scary.
Thankfully, my manager was helping me close the store that night, and I told her what I just saw. She locked the front door of our store and called the police.
Yep.
When they arrived, they had to pretty much drag him out of my car, and they did arrest him.
Good.
On him was a pocket knife, some rope, and a rag with fucking chloroform
Oh my God.
on it. If I hadn't looked up when I did, I would probably not be here to write this story right now.
Oh my gosh, Lainey.
The universe was looking out for me, and it wasn't my time.
Nope.
I don't know where Doug is today, but I quit working at the sandwich shop.
I would too. Yeah.
Listening to your Randy Woodfield story took me back to that day almost a decade ago when I could have been just another statistic out there.
Yeah.
Another victim of a ruthless stalker or serial killer. I wonder who else Doug may have been obsessed with, preying on, or even more dark, already assaulted or killed.
Right.
I thank my lucky stars every day that I happened to see him out there that day and that I was able to escape whatever sinister intentions he had in mind. It's just a reminder to all my ladies out there to trust their instincts when something seems off and never be too kind to those who just give you that vibe.
Yep.
You never know what dangers are lurking in the minds of strangers. Thank you, ladies, for reminding us on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
I am so happy to have found your podcast. Your loyal Lucid Lab listener, Lainey.
Wow, Lainey.
That is insane.
Scary. And to witness him actually crawl into your car, that is something else.
And I feel like that was something with the universe helping to get him off the streets. And now he's going to have a record. Although we know that things like that don't stick long.
That actually happened to me, not in the exact same way, but it was like an ex guy I had dated a little bit.
Okay.
Like not enough. And he was older. I knew it wasn't okay. And so I ended it. He ended up being a really weird guy. And I was in Nob Hill, Albuquerque, and I was at a bank.
Okay.
And I was trying to deposit. Where did I work at that point? I don't remember, but I was depositing that day's money or something.
Yeah.
And I get a text message. I can see your ugly face from here. Something like that. And it was from him. And I'm like,
oh my God.
So I had the bank people walk me out because I'm like, he's scary. And he's obviously within this intersection somewhere staring at me right now.
I feel like every woman has a story. I may have told this one on here before, so I won't mention it again, but I had a guy when I was 16 years old at the grocery store who would come through my checkout lane all the time. And when I got my high school ring, he was like, oh, you go to Belton High School where I went. And he was like, he came through my line literally 2 days later and he was wearing his high school ring and he showed it to me and he was like, look, we have matching rings. And this guy was creepy. I was 16. He was probably 40. He always would come in during the day. And one night he came in right at like 10 o'clock at night because I closed the store a lot as a student and it freaked me out that he might be out there. And I remember having my manager walk me to the car.
Yep. Don't be afraid to do that. Anyone, like if you're worried about someone outside and you're trying to leave, get someone.
Yes. And we had to park way far out at the grocery store.
To not take up the front spots or something?
Yeah, exactly. For the customers. Right. But I remember when I'd work the shift, because we would close at midnight. It was always creepy walking out there.
It is. I did a late night walk yesterday for the first time. What was it in last?
Naughty.
Last episode, I think I was like, I don't do those anymore. Well, I went and did one.
Now she does.
And I got to this part of the walk because I kind of do it in a wooded area, like I said.
Smart.
And so stupid. But
it's like we do a podcast about horrible men all the time.
I told my mom, I'm like, I have my air tag on me, just so you know. And this time I wore a whistle. So I was like, I was trying to be prepared. I had mace and stuff, but I was walking in this one area and it was really hard to see because it was so dark. I like was squinting ahead and I swear to God, I saw a person just standing there. And I was like,
It gives you that feeling.
I'm going to turn around.
Yeah.
And I did. But I was really scared just walking away. I kept looking back like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, so scary.
You have to trust your instinct because maybe there was somebody hiding there. Even, who knows?
Who knows? It certainly looked like a human body just standing there, and they weren't on the trail. They were just off of it.
That's even more suspicious. Well, thank you, Lainey, for writing in.
Yes.
We're glad you're safe and sound.
Yep. Okay, I'm next, and I have our first mini episode, and I'm covering a case from here.
Oh, okay.
In Aurora, Colorado. It's a really hard one to talk about because it is one of the most heartbreaking things I've had to witness.
Oh.
And I say witness because of the body cam footage from the cops that is out there.
Oh, no.
And the absolutely gut-wrenching cries from the surviving victim. And I've seen some people online question if that should be out there for everyone to see and hear. But as we do with a lot of our cases, it's not just about entertainment. Obviously, those types of things go very far because of morbid curiosity and whatnot.
Yes.
But it's education and a call for action and justice. The relationship that led to what happened in this story didn't start out bad. They usually don't.
They never do, I feel like.
These people do not show you who they are in the very beginning.
Right. Which is so scary.
I know. And then they can turn controlling. The reality is, we don't consider just how common and scary it is that a relationship can escalate to murder.
Yes.
Because a good majority, if not the majority of murder is inter-partner crime or violence.
And usually men on women.
It's my hope in telling this story and others like it that anyone listening who is maybe experiencing a similar relationship or knows someone who is can find the courage to get out or help that person get out. And it takes a lot of bravery because leaving a man is also scary and it's a risk, and it can and does in a lot of cases result in violence and at worst death.
I know. It's a scary world out there for us women. Guys come after us and they're like, your standards are too high. We have to be, because there is a very high chance that you could hurt us in some way.
This story also, again, shines light on our judicial system. There is way too much leniency for domestic abuse. Men are let off the hook too often, and then things like this happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I haven't told you the case yet. It's unlikely that you've heard of it, but you may have.
Okay.
I just came upon this like 2 days ago. I wanted to cover this today because there has been an update in the story as of September of last year.
Okay.
I'm covering the case of Joseph Castorina, the perpetrator in a quadruple homicide.
Oh, wow.
Joseph Mario Castorina was only 21 when he killed 4 people in Aurora on October 30th, 2022.
Wow, that wasn't long ago. I don't know this case.
Yeah. He was no stranger to the victims. He was the ex-partner of the survivor. Her name was Jessica Serrano. Jessica and Joseph had 2 young daughters together, of which they had shared custody, but the relationship was volatile and he was abusive.
Okay.
In fact, he had a well-documented history of domestic violence with Jessica, even at his young age.
21.
21.
Wow.
He had also previously been arrested for felony child abuse.
Oh, no.
Failure to appear in court and violating court orders. Over the years, their relationship was on and off again. They broke up frequently, and then they would reconcile for the sake of the girls, but the violence just continued to escalate. In the weeks leading up to the murders, the tension was at an all-time high, and just 1 week before the murders on October 23rd, 2022, Jessica was granted a protective order against him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the first. Jessica and her father, Jesus Serrano, had filed separate protection orders against him in the past for his violent tendencies and threats.
But those orders don't do much.
No, it's just a flimsy piece of paper.
You have to have like a cop sitting outside of your house to uphold it.
This particular protection order was granted to her and also her father separately because a lot of threats were towards him as well.
Okay.
After he confronted Jessica at her work in her car, as she attempted to drive away, he smashed her driver's side window in with a tire iron.
Oh, scary.
She had minor cuts from the glass shattering into her face. He then forced her door open and pulled on her shirt, making her fall out of the car. He forced her to get into his car and go to lunch with him.
What?
He wouldn't let her leave his car afterwards. He held her hostage at gunpoint.
Wow.
And he threatened to kill her or himself if she didn't concede to his demands. This protective order barred him from contacting her or possessing firearms, but it did nothing at all. And Joseph had a way of evading serious punishment for anything. His family was always there to bail him out.
Ugh.
despite how bad he got, and he's bad. But with the escalation of things and the fighting, CPS was then alerted, and they did remove the 2 little girls and sent them to be with family in Texas.
Okay.
Just until things like calmed down.
Which was smart. Keep them safe.
Mm-hmm. And it might have been the trigger for what he would end up doing the very next day.
Okay.
On October 30th, 2022, just after 2 a.m., Jessica, along with her family, returned home after attending a party. I think it might have been a family party because they were all together.
It's Halloween time.
That's true.
Sense.
Once they got inside, she went to her bedroom and she opened her closet. I don't know, probably to put away a jacket or something.
Was he there?
No, not in there, but she did notice his things hidden in her closet. Things that weren't there before. His jacket, a pair of jeans, and his car keys.
Creepy.
She immediately called 911.
Yes.
She told them that she thought he was hiding somewhere in the house.
I can't imagine how scary
Yes.
you would feel.
This conversation is hard to listen to, but it's the only audio that I'm going to play. This is only part of the 911 call. I do cut it off before you hear things you don't want to hear.
What is your first and last name? Jessica Serrano. Tell me exactly what happened, Jessica. My ex-boyfriend has me shoe and he's not supposed to be here around me at this house. And I just found his jacket here, his jeans, and his keys here in my closet hiding. Okay. Give me 1 second. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anybody that saw him in the house at all? What? Sorry. Did anybody see him inside the house? No, but his stuff is here. Did you look around? Did you see him at all or anything? No. Okay. Bear with me 1 second, okay? I believe he's hiding somewhere. Do you have cameras around your house? Yes, we do. Okay. Did you see anything on the cameras? I don't. Not at the moment. I haven't because my sister's the one that has the cameras. But I told her to check. So she's going to do that now. Alright. Is anyone there experiencing any flu symptoms or been asked for self-quarantine? No. Alrighty. I do have that in here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and out there. If you do end up seeing him on camera and anything else, just give us a call back, but I have it in, okay? What's going on, Jessica? Oh my God! There's shots fired in the house! Okay, what's going on? I don't know, I can't ask myself to go to the restroom. Oh no! Stay on the phone with me. Stay on the phone with me. Stay on the phone, okay? Don't hang up. Okay. Was that another one? Okay. Stay on the phone. Stay away from the doors and the windows, okay? Okay, where is everybody else? Okay, Jessica, take a deep breath. I have this in, okay? We're getting them out there. Just stay on the phone with me. Okay. Who's that in the background? What room are you in? Are you in the bedroom or the basement? The first room? Okay. I need you to get down on the ground, okay? Lay on your stomach for me. I need you to say it a little bit louder if you can. Ma'am, can you say your address a little bit louder?
That's hard to listen to.
It's very hard to listen to, but I only let it go as long as it did because of just a frustration of mine. So right after this, Jessica starts screaming. There are more gunshots and what sounds like a physical altercation.
Okay.
I get frustrated listening to it because the dispatcher decided then that it was the best time to ask for her address and telling her to speak up when there's a murderer in her house.
In the house, yes.
When she eventually gets silent on the other end and the dispatcher just keeps saying hello. And I know it's her job to keep her on the phone, but there was little to zero urgency when taking the call until there were gunshots.
Right. To get someone there.
She didn't ask for her address right away.
Yeah,
In
that's
fact,
the first thing they should ask, I would think.
She didn't seem to believe her. I don't know. She asked if there were people with the flu inside the house before she got the address.
That's fucked up.
And you'll come to see that actually mattered. Like the address was needed. Joseph had been there waiting for some time, hiding with a stolen handgun.
Oh my God.
The first to be shot was Kenneth Eugene Green Luque. He was 20 years old.
Okay.
And he was the husband of Jessica's twin sister, Mariana.
Aww. Okay.
He was shot at the foot of the basement stairs. Mariana, who was 22, was then shot twice in the basement. They were just babies themselves.
That's so sad. So he was, I guess, hiding in the basement.
I'm guessing so
That's
too.
where he came from.
Yep.
Yeah.
Upstairs, Joseph then confronted Jessica's father, Jesus, in the hallway. He was only 51. He was shot twice. The fourth victim was not a family member, but a man by the name of Rodolfo Salgado Perez. He was 49 years old. He was a family friend who was renting the RV outside that they had on the property.
Okay.
And when everything started, he stepped outside.
Yes.
What's the commotion?
What's up?
And that's when he was shot and killed. After that, Joseph ran through the house searching for Jessica. He found her hiding in the bathroom. It is on the 911 call when we hear this altercation. She screams his name and you hear him say, "You're next."
Oh, shit.
He's still trying to get inside. She has the door locked and stuff.
Okay.
But thankfully, he was out of bullets.
Oh.
I think he tried to shoot through the door and realized that he was
He's
out.
Yeah.
Because then you hear him say, "Fine, you're not next." "Why do you do this to me, Jessica?"
What?
Of course, blaming her. He goes, "I don't have more bullets." So she finds out in that moment, "Oh, you were going to kill me." You know?
He would have. Yeah.
But he's yelling at her, "Come out and talk to me right now. What do you want me to do?" Meanwhile, he's trying to kick in the door and he succeeds. But she fights back and she's able to grab him and throw him into the bathtub and run.
Good.
Gives her 3 seconds ahead of him. So
Yeah.
she's running outside. She runs onto the street and he's following her. He is chasing her. She sees a car and she's trying to flag them down. They don't stop for her.
Ugh.
But that alerts him, "Oh crap, okay, I need to stop and I need to run." So he stops and he starts running in the other direction.
Okay.
It was right after that Sergeant Paul Davis with the Aurora Police Department arrived. And this is why I said the address mattered, because in the beginning of his video, you can tell he doesn't know which house it is.
Right.
He's
It's hard
walking
to
around
tell.
with a flashlight, trying to figure out, okay, where is this commotion coming from?
Mm-hmm.
I was going to play the audio from this body cam, but after this, it's too painful to listen to. Her cries, it's hard. If you want to go watch the whole thing, we will link it in the show notes, but I will not do it here. The sergeant is walking around on the street with a flashlight and comes upon her. She runs up to him. She's crying and screaming. I just feel so bad for
I
her.
can't imagine.
She hugged him when she first saw him. She was so scared. She just instinctively reached out for comfort, and he did hug her back.
Mm-hmm.
He asks her what happened and she tells him, "He shot my family." She's distraught, just crying uncontrollably, and he's trying to get details from her, and he learns that Joseph ran off. So the cop starts walking in that direction because there's still this immediate threat.
Right.
It just absolutely breaks my heart. As the cop is walking away, you hear her crying out for her father.
Oh my
"Papa,
God.
Papa." After this, other officers arrived. They were not able to find Joseph in and around the home. He fled on foot, barefoot.
Interesting. Where was his shoes? He was hiding in the basement barefooted.
I mean, maybe he's heard too many stories and he thought they would be able to identify his shoe print
Yeah.
or something. And maybe that's why he took them off. He also left behind his car keys. But in the house, they would discover the horror that so quickly unfolded. Jesus, Mariana, Kenneth, and Rodolfo were dead.
Oh my God.
And there is more footage of this part too, which I'm not going to play for you, but she goes back inside the house and sees her family members deceased. She ran out so fast. Maybe she had passed her dad on the way. I don't know.
Well, she was running for her life.
Yes. It's just her screams. I will never forget.
No, they were giving me shivers listening just to the 911 call.
And at this point, it's just her and one cop inside the house, and he didn't know that she was in the house looking around.
Okay.
And he's trying to look around, and her screaming is so loud. He had to go back inside and move her through the front yard and make her leave. And it seemed insensitive in the moment, but it had to be done. He essentially pushed her out of the house, but he did stop her once outside and tried to ask questions to calm her down and have her focus a little. And oh my God, in that moment, it's just horrible because something triggered her to remember something extremely important.
Okay.
That there were 2 others in the house that she didn't mention yet, and it was a shock to everyone. There were 2 young children still in the house.
Oh, Mariana's
Kids.
Oh no.
And she just started screaming, "The girls, the girls, oh my God, the girls, the girls."
Yeah.
And it's a 1-year-old and a 3-month-old.
Wow.
Once the cop understood, he radioed other cops to, look for them. They were found in a bedroom unharmed, but they were very shaken up.
Of course.
As you can imagine.
Oh my God.
Poor sweet babies. They lost both their parents.
Both of their parents. That's heartbreaking.
And they're so young, they're not going to remember them. That just always breaks my heart. The rest of the body cam footage shows Sergeant Davis with Jessica outside. He took her further away from the crime scene to try and console her. He's rubbing her back, and all he can keep saying is, I know, I know, I know.
What do you say?
I mean, she's in and out of shock. He's holding her at one point. Oh, it's so hard. She's like, my dad, my sister. Like, she doesn't have her dad to give her those hugs anymore. Oh, it's so hard.
Yeah.
And she's blaming herself. But there's this one moment when she backs up from him, and it's heartbreaking. Through her heavy sobs, she says, we always called you guys about him coming here, doing this and that. You guys don't arrest him, or the dad and the mom always bails him out. It's always the same shit all the time. And then with the most guttural of screams, she screams, why, why me? And
oh my goodness.
you would have to watch it, but I do commend this officer. He seemed to just really be there for her.
Yeah.
In all of this. I really do think he did the best he could, like in this unimaginable situation.
Yeah.
But she goes on to scream, like, I told you guys to hurry up. You guys don't listen to me,
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it's so frustrating. She knew it could come to this.
And now her family's dead.
Yeah. And there's no going back. And I have a feeling this is the story in a lot of these domestic cases.
I know. Well, after he could calm her down as much as he could, he went back inside because he was actually one of the more senior officers there, and they were like waiting for him.
Okay.
And by this point, there's medics there, all kinds. It was also at this time that the kids got out. They were taken to Children's Hospital. Jessica was also taken to the hospital. It was after that they found Rodolfo in the backyard because they had not searched the backyard yet. They thought it was just the family. And that's something that's kind of crazy. Perez was the last to be shot.
Okay.
It makes you stop and think for a moment, because if Joseph hadn't discovered him out back and shot him, he would have had enough bullets to kill Jessica.
True. And he would have.
Yep. So you don't want to wish for anybody's death over another, but it is a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah.
Immediately, a massive manhunt for him started. He left behind a lot of evidence, including the gun, the casings, fingerprints on everything, which they'll find out later. Residents in the area were alerted to the manhunt and were told to stay in their houses because he's obviously very dangerous.
Yeah.
And he's barefoot, so he's vulnerable. He might try and hurt someone to save himself, because how far can he get?
Right.
Well, it turns out he does get pretty far in the end, but at first he really only needed to make it to his parents' house, which was just a few blocks away.
Please don't tell me that they're going to protect him again.
I'll tell you here in a second.
Okay.
Other than officers, they also had police dogs, drones, like the whole shebang. They were combing the neighborhood, and they did end up at his parents' house because his phone was pinging in the area.
Okay.
They also found his Hummer somewhere between Jessica's house and his parents' house on the side of the street. And inside they found his wallet, which had his Colorado IDs, his social security card, his debit card, his credit card. It had everything.
Yeah.
They tried getting his family to cooperate, but it was a little difficult. His sister talked to the cops, but she was scared.
Mm-hmm.
And she had just gotten home from work. And although hesitant, cops did convince who was inside to come out. And it was just the mom and another sister.
Okay.
And he was not there. It would turn out when doing the search in Jessica's backyard, he left his phone there.
Oh, and that's why it was pinging.
Mm-hmm. Whether on purpose or accident, I don't know. So the ping of his phone was no longer helpful, and he managed to escape.
Oh, wow.
The next day, the police department received a call from one of Joseph's cousins, Joel. He admitted that Joseph showed up early that morning barefoot, knocking on his window, asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
And that he just kept saying, I fucked up. I'm like, dude, you more than fucked up.
Yeah, that's not the word for it.
Joel refused to help him.
Good.
But he did give him a pair of green tennis shoes. But he made him leave.
Because he knew that something bad had gone down.
Yeah. And he did call him to the cops the next day. He probably had to think about it for a minute, but he did.
Mm-hmm.
It was later the next day that Joseph's younger brother, Juan, was arrested and charged with accessory after the fact. He did confess to giving his brother a ride away from the area.
Oh,
and he dropped him off with another one of their cousins, Carlos.
Mm.
Carlos then tried to pass Joseph off to other family members who refused him.
Okay.
So he ended up dropping him off just by a random school with blankets and some cash.
He's like, good luck.
You have to figure it out.
Yeah.
But he was arrested because he did help.
Because they knew he was up to something.
Yeah. Well, at that point, it was probably on the news that there was a
He was at
quadruple
large.
homicide.
Yeah.
It would take time, but after more investigation, his evasion led authorities to Mexico, where he had family.
Okay.
The FBI, the Mexican government, and Interpol got involved, and he was eventually tracked down in Aguascalientes. He spent 2 months on the run.
Damn.
But was arrested by Mexican police on December 10th, 2022. And I'm not sure how he managed to get that far south in Mexico because he didn't have anything.
He didn't have his wallet.
Nothing.
What?
No identification, nothing. But apparently he tried to get help from some family, but upon hearing what he did, they would not help him. And unless he wore a turtleneck, he was easy to identify because he had a very large, distinctive lion on his neck.
Oh, okay.
So he stuck out, especially in this rural part of Mexico, and they caught him.
Good.
He was extradited back to the United States. First to the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office in Arizona before he was transferred back to Colorado to face charges. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. The case did not go to trial until May of 2024, even though the evidence was overwhelming. So a lot of waiting. I can't imagine what Jessica went through during that time. Just the horror and grief that she experienced. And then, you don't want her to feel guilt. It's not her fault. He's a fucking crazy person. But then
she's gonna.
Knowing,
your partner killed your sister and your
father
and your brother-in-law, and now these kids don't have parents. Like, that would be a lot to hold.
The family friends, yeah. He was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced in September to 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole, and 24 years for the attempted murder on her life.
Okay.
Which was to run concurrently with the life sentence. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But it's the conviction regardless,
And it keeps them from hopefully getting paroled if there's more against him.
Yep, stacked on top. With this sentence, Arapahoe County District Judge David Carpel had this to say. I've had many people stand before me as defendants and say, I'm not a bad person. I just did the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. And I've sometimes agreed with them. But Mr. Castorina, you are the biggest exception to the rule. Your actions were those of an insignificant little man with a big gun who had to control the people in his life that supposedly he loved, and did so with such abject violence. This insignificance of yours will dissipate in time into the ether where you will become forgotten.
I like it.
And I hope he rots in jail and never gets to see his daughters again.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
And I hope all the families involved will find what bit of peace they can. I'm glad that Jessica still has her mother.
Yeah.
And those babies still have their mother, but her nieces no longer have their parents. Mom. And really the poor friend who just happened to be there. And the father who did what he could to stand up for his daughter and the abuse that was happening.
Yeah.
They were failed by the system. His family bailed him out too much. He never learned his lessons.
Yep.
It's all just so horrible. It's just a tragic ending to a bad relationship. And I will never understand why someone decides that murder is the only way to solve something.
I don't understand.
I'll never understand.
No, we're not those kind of mindset.
So that's that story. Pretty crazy that I had never heard of it, and it happened here.
Quadruple homicide. Yeah. I think there's just so many of them to keep up with. Like, probably if we look at every week of news, there's some kind of homicide going on somewhere in Colorado.
And it is Aurora. Aurora can be a little bit
It probably has
iffy.
A higher crime rate than others. Well, that's so sad.
I'm
Poor
sorry,
Jessica.
I hope you're on a healing journey now.
Yeah.
And knowing that he's away for the rest of his life, you can find a place to restart with your daughters.
I wonder what happened to the nieces. Are they living with Jessica or her mom?
I don't know, because it's a local story. It's not a national thing. Yeah, they're not being interviewed. There's just not as much information out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking about that story. And just like you said at the beginning, use it as a warning. If you're in that kind of situation, you have an abusive partner and someone who keeps threatening. But I feel like Jessica was doing everything she could. She was reporting him.
Exactly.
Like, I don't even know what to say.
She wasn't with him. She had a restraining order.
It's so scary. And you don't know, because he was probably a great guy, like you said, when they first started dating.
Obviously, there was some interest in the beginning.
You don't stay with a guy in the beginning that comes out abusive. They're very good at hiding and love bombing and all of that.
Until they have their control over you.
And then you're stuck.
Yep. And just because you have kids together, that does not stop them from hurting you. If anything,
it can make it worse.
Yep.
because they feel like they own you.
Yep.
Heartbreaking.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to go into my mini episode, which is no less heartbreaking.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about, I guess we are always talking about dark time in American history.
Yes.
This happened back in the early 1900s, and it's the story of Mary Turner and several other people, but Mary Turner is the main focus.
Okay. Yep. I know where we're going.
This involves racial injustice.
This is an important one to talk about at this time.
It's a reminder that this wasn't that long ago.
No.
That people were lynched just for the color of their skin.
Yes.
There are many states in America right now that are headed back in this direction.
I know. It is
And
very
it's
scary times.
And I feel for anyone who is a minority in this country. It's a very real threat because these men feel like they can say whatever
Entitled.
they want. They're
Yeah.
doing Nazi salute. Nobody's going to stop them, it feels like.
Even our fucking vice president follows Nazi people on
Right.
social media.
And they're all worshiping Putin.
And it's important for us to tell these types of stories because they're actively trying to erase our history again. Watch out.
We are coming out of Black History Month. Our president canceled Black History Month.
He sure did,
He also canceled International Women's Day, which was on March 8th.
which was yesterday for us.
And Apple removed all of these from our phones. So
Yes, they did.
they want us to not have that community to celebrate the Black Americans that contributed so much to our country.
They are literally erasing our history. Even NASA, their website, they have erased
We are living
women.
in
Yeah.
real life 1984, where they had the Ministry of Truth,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite the opposite. We have the same thing going on. And so, yes, I want to highlight this story before we can't find information about Mary Turner again.
I will be telling some history next week. It was supposed to be on this one, but it's kind of along the same lines. But it's important. We need to tell the stories now before they try and erase it.
So between 1877 and 1950, at least 4,075 Black Americans were murdered by lynch mobs. The statistic comes from the Equal Justice Initiative.
And it's probably much more than that. I don't trust most counts.
Very true. This is just the ones we know of. There were
Right.
many that were probably hidden and they just went missing.
More
And
rural areas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
the great majority of these murders were committed in the southern states, which makes sense considering many of the Confederate states had a hard time letting go of the idea of slavery, and many of them are still struggling to this day to accept Black people as equals.
I know.
It does not make sense to me.
They want to bring it back.
It's disgusting. Most of the thousands of individuals lynched in the United States were Black men, but there were at least 120 Black women known to have been killed this way. One of the most horrific cases happened in 1918 to a woman named Mary Turner. She was brutally attacked and killed while 8 months pregnant.
Yes.
So Mary Hattie Graham was born sometime around 1885. Sources differ on her exact birth date and even year. She was born to Perry Graham and Elizabeth Betsy Johnson in Brooks County, Georgia. She had an older sister, Pearl, and two younger brothers named Perry and Otha. Not much else is known about her early life, but at some point Mary gave birth to a son named Willie Lloyd Smith. His birth year varies in records between 1907 and 1910. Mary also gave birth to a daughter named Leicester. Around 1917, she met and married Hazel Hayes Turner in Colquitt County, Georgia. He had been previously married. It is unknown if he had any children from his previous marriage, but they were expecting, as I mentioned, she was pregnant, their first child,
Right.
when this horrific action would happen against both of them. Sometime after her marriage to Hayes, Mary took a job working at the Old Joyce Place, which was owned by a white farmer named Hampton Smith. Hampton was not a nice man. He was around 25 years old and owned this large plantation near Morven, Georgia.
Ugh.
He was known among Black workers for being abusive, which unfortunately Mary would bear the brunt of on at least one occasion. She came home one night with clear signs of abuse, and when her husband learned that Hampton was the reason, he went to the plantation and threatened Hampton that if he ever laid a hand on his wife again, it would be the last time.
Oh.
Now, of course, a Black man threatening a white man with
Yeah.
money at this time and even now is never going to go well. Hampton called the police on Hayes and he was arrested. Shortly after, he was convicted by an all-white jury and sentenced to work on the chain gang. Because of his reputation as an abuser, Hampton Smith had a hard time recruiting workers as farm labor. He resolved this labor shortage, as many other plantation owners did after slavery ended, using convict labor.
Oh, okay.
So the way that this would work is they would pay the fees that Black men were assessed for very small infractions. they would arrest them for anything and then put such large fines that these men could never buy their way out. And these white men would lease their labor for a period of time, basically paying the local jurisdiction the fees, and then those workers would have to work underneath these men until they paid back that fee.
So did he have to go work for him?
Not Hayes.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is Hampton Smith was doing this to get his farm labor. This practice was known as peonage. And it was actually against federal law, but it would be practiced in Georgia until 1942 because the state legislators just turned a blind eye.
Yeah. And they're trying to get prison labor again.
Yes, that's why they want to arrest all of our immigrants. It's disgusting. If you did take on these peonage workers, you would be responsible for food and board of them. Authorities exercised little oversight related to how that was done by the different owners. I almost want to say slave owners in a way.
Right.
But they were plantation owners. Convict leasing was another word for it, which just sounds horrible.
It does.
The black men were often abused. There was a journalist that just called it what it was. It was slavery by another name.
Yes.
Peonage.
Yep.
Among the workers Hampton employed this way was a man named Sidney Johnson. Sidney had been arrested for playing dice. I'm guessing that's like gambling. And his fine was $30, which was very high at the time for a farm worker. Sidney endured several beatings at the hand of Hampton Smith, including a severe one after refusing to work while he was very sick. And all of this led up to one fateful night. On May 16th, 1918, Sidney Johnson shot Hampton Smith and his wife through a window in their house. It killed Hampton and wounded his wife.
Oh, wow.
Sidney fled the scene and was able to make it successfully to Valdosta, Georgia. But Hampton's killing prompted a manhunt, but not by the legal police authorities. Instead, It was an angry white mob.
Yeah.
They were all just waiting for any reason.
Of course they
at
are.
this
Just
point.
like they are right now.
Yeah, they want a reason to just start killing people.
That's why KKK members and Nazis are walking out and being proud about it.
And they're trying to pull you into fighting with them. So they have a reason.
Right.
So this white mob started going through Brooks County and taking their aggression out on anyone they thought might have been involved in Hampton's death.
Anyone of color.
Yes, of course. As this white mob hunted for Sidney Johnson, they would end up lynching at least 13 black men and women over 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
On May 17th, 2 men were captured, Will Head and Will Thompson, and they were lynched by the mob. It would come out later during the investigation that these 2 men's bodies were riddled with more than 700 bullets.
Which is just fucking proof that they were waiting. All they wanted to do was do this.
They all wanted to use their guns that they've been holding on to kill a black man, and they all wanted to get a shot in. Disgusting.
Wow.
Julius Jones was also captured by the mob and killed in the same manner. Chaim Riley was a black man that was at first rumored to have left Brooks County. He was later found to have been lynched by the mob as well, although he had no known connection to Sidney Johnson or Hampton Smith. Didn't even work for the guy.
Exactly.
He was just a black man in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
He had been thrown into the Little River in Brooks County to drown. Turpentine cups were tied to his hands and legs to weigh him down.
Oh my God.
Another man, Simon Schumann, was taken from his house by the mob. His family was driven out of the house and they completely destroyed it. He fortunately survived, but he was arrested. They just took him to authorities and they convicted him as being part of the murder of Hampton Smith, even though
He wasn't
connected at all. On June 25th, 1918, he was removed from Brooks County Jail to an unknown location to avoid being lynched. So he did survive.
Okay, good. I thought that was going to go somewhere else.
Sometimes it does. But I think at that point it had already been a month and they had moved past it.
Okay.
There were several other men that were identified later, and that's how they got to that number of 13. But the story we want to talk about here is Hayes and Mary Turner. So among the men that were picked up in the hunt for Hampton Smith's killer was Hayes Turner, because he was already known to have had conflict with Hampton. He had threatened him in the past, even though he hadn't really been anywhere near him. He had motive. Hayes Turner was arrested on the morning of Saturday, May 18th, and placed in the jail in Valdosta, Georgia. Later in the day, County Sheriff Wade and a clerk of court took him out ostensibly to move him to Quitman, which was the county seat where he was supposed to face trial. But there is a lot of suspicion that they were moving him just so he could be out in the open again
And
for
be
this
killed.
mob.
Right.
So along the way, he was taken by the mob, and I'm sure the police just let them have him. His body was left hanging from a tree, and it was there for 3 days before authorities cut him down. After Hayes was murdered, his distraught wife, Mary, began publicly denouncing her husband's lynching. She denied that her husband had been involved in Hampton Smith's killing, and she, out of just despair, threatened to have members of the mob arrested, which you just didn't do as a Black person back then. You couldn't speak out, even though they had clearly been wronged.
Right.
The mob turned against her and showed up at her house to teach her a lesson. She was captured at noon on May 19th, so just one day after her husband had been killed. They took Mary to the bank of the Little River in Brooks County. She was tied and hung upside down by her ankles. Her clothes were soaked with gasoline, and they set her on fire. Her belly was slit open with a knife, and her unborn baby fell to the ground and was alive and began giving cries.
Oh my God.
This is like so hard for me to talk about.
I know.
And one of the cruel members of the mob crushed the baby's head with his foot. And then the rest of the mob covered her body and the baby's in bullets. They just started shooting her.
But remind me again why those same men don't want abortions and need wives at home.
Pro-life and all of that.
Fuck.
One of these men was able to crush a baby's head. Like, what kind of sadistic piece of shit? And to kill a pregnant woman, slice her belly out. Like, this is just unimaginable.
For women whatsoever. It was a fantasy for them.
They had been waiting for this.
Yeah.
These sick fucks.
Poor baby.
Sidney Johnson, who was the real murderer of Hampton Smith, did reach Valdosta, and he was able to hide out for a few days. But when he appealed to another Black man for food, that man actually called the police on him. The chief of Lowndes County, Calvin Dampier, took officers armed with high-powered rifles to the house, where they engaged in a shootout with Johnson. Johnson had been armed with a shotgun and pistol, and he was not going to go down easy. At least he was going to take some of them out with him.
Right.
After the shooting stopped, the police finally entered the house, and they found Sidney Johnson dead inside. But along the way, he had wounded Calvin Dampier and a couple of other brothers that deserved it.
Wounded or killed?
Just wounded them.
Damn.
The mob came in and took Sidney Johnson's body. They were upset they didn't have a chance to lynch him, and he just died in a shootout. So they decided to
hang him up anyway.
They mutilated his body. I'm not real sure how. And then they tied it to the back of their car and dragged it in a procession down Patterson Street in Morven. There, after they paraded him through, they hung his body from a tree and set him on fire as well. I can't, this kind of stuff makes me so angry to read.
Yes. It's like we know this history,
but we don't talk about it much.
No, we don't talk about it. I mean, I even only recently learned about parts of slavery that I had no idea happened. Some really scary shit that, you know, eating them.
I was about to say, like, them eating the workers.
Stretching and drying their skin to paint on, to bind books. I didn't know that stuff.
Using their teeth. They literally used slaves like they would cattle.
Yes.
They did not see them as human beings. It's shocking to me.
It's beyond, like, we can't even.
There's no words for it.
There's no words, but I am forever hardened and saddened on a daily basis by the history of this country and the Native people and Black community, any minority that has been wronged.
All of them have been wronged in the U.S.
I know. And the genocide that is every day still.
That we don't know about.
That we don't acknowledge. There's so much history that I've learned just in the past few months. I think you and I have been talking about this. Last year was kind of transformative for us. And I think for a lot of people in terms of social media and seeing what's going on around the world and your eyes being opened, I can only hope that the right side of humanity wins this ugly, evil war.
Me too.
But it's been going on forever.
So following these lynchings, more than 500 Black residents fled the area to escape the violence, although white people threatened to kill the Black workers if they tried to leave. You can't win.
No, you can't. It's the same shit right now with them trying to deport all the immigrants. And they're like, well, wait, don't leave.
We want your labor.
but you need to stay until they actually come and get you.
Mm-hmm. And they're fleeing, and they should be. If I was them, I would be afraid, and I would go to Mexico too. I would get the fuck out of here. Mexico has an amazing president right now, and she will support them.
Just stay off some beaches.
Yeah, there's still the cartels that are crazy
scary
and scary
stuff still. And that's why they try to come here. But then it's not safe here either.
Where is safe?
I know.
At this point in the world.
That's true. Nowhere.
I can't think of anywhere.
Iceland, probably.
Iceland, I did see a thing on TikTok, and they have like all these female leaders.
They do, and they're very open to all communities. So,
and they're closed off, so people can't get there easily. And it's cold, and people don't want to be there.
I'd rather be cold and safe, but I'm sure it has its problems there too, and its own.
Everywhere does.
Racist people, so.
And there's probably still murderers.
Yeah.
Because of the horrific crime specifically against Mary Turner, although men had been killed in horrific ways over and over, just the pure thought of like a pregnant woman being treated and killed the way she was along with her unborn baby did cause a national outcry.
Good.
And the NAACP at the time used it to try and push for anti-lynching legislation at the federal level.
Yeah.
But these campaigns were unsuccessful. Our country was not ready in 1918 to pass anti-lynching. Like, to me, this just seems like very basic human rights. Don't fucking kill people just because you want to.
Nope.
But we will probably have laws like that again, just in the way we're headed.
Well, it's now on the books, one of the Midwest southern states, that women can receive the death penalty for an abortion.
Yeah.
It's just white men. It's all white men, white men, white men, white men, white men.
Always. They're the bane of civilization at this point in my mind.
All over the world. All over the world.
Everywhere. There were also white newspapers and black newspapers back in this time, and the lynching of Mary was handled very differently. White newspapers failed to mention that she was pregnant.
Oh, of course.
Or that her unborn baby was brutally murdered. They focused on her speaking out and going against authorities to why she died. Kind of like she deserved it.
Right. Like she was threatening us because her criminal husband did this or that, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. They talked about her having an attitude that was unbecoming of a woman and that she made unwise remarks and just victim blaming. That's what the white newspapers reported. Of course, the black newspapers reported all of the details that I just shared, which was the truth. Her husband was unlawfully taken in and killed.
Right.
He was not responsible for that. And all she said was, my husband didn't do that. She was defending his name.
Right.
And she was killed in this brutal way.
Absolutely horrible.
Walter White, he was the NAACP Assistant Secretary, was actually his title. He traveled to South Georgia to conduct an investigation into what they call now the Brooks Lowndes lynchings, which included those 13 men and women. He provided a complete report of his investigation of the Turner murders back to the federal authorities, and he included the names of those he knew were involved. He had 2 main instigators that they found and 15 other participants, but no one was ever charged for any of the killings, including Mary Turner. This was typical of the time.
Yeah.
In 1922, because of Mary Turner's death, Congressman Leonidas Dyer of St. Louis, Missouri, did introduce the Dyer anti-lynching bill into the U.S. House of Representatives, and it actually passed overwhelmingly.
Mm-hmm.
But the states, once again, blocked it and didn't enforce it. It took a while for it to come to fruition. It was in 1924 where it finally kind of gotten taken seriously by Georgia. Yeah. I think a lot of these smaller rural areas, it was still okay. Like they would not prosecute white men for lynching black people ever. These men got away with it. And most of them, honestly, when you look at that, a lot of them were part of the police system.
Yeah. And what's scary about that, if you think about it, obviously not now, it's been 100 years. Once we were sort of in modern times, you wouldn't know that that person who's maybe your neighbor in Georgia was a man who did what he did during this time.
No, you wouldn't. And he's probably going to church every fucking Sunday.
I know. So scary. I hope they all died horrible deaths riddled with cancer and pain.
lots of pain. By the late 1990s, the Turner lynching specifically attracted the renewed attention of historians. Julie Buckner Armstrong specifically focused on this and visited Lowndes County Historical Society and Museum and the Brooks County Museum and Cultural Center, where she found that none of this had been recorded or it had been struck from the record.
Exactly. Right.
The directors denied having any knowledge of these lynchings occurring and claimed that their counties did not have these lynchings and that it was like a mythological story or something.
No.
I don't know. In 2008, the Mary Turner Project was formed. It is a diverse grassroots volunteer collective of students, educators, and local community members who are committed to racial justice and racial healing.
Yep.
They conduct memorial events for her death in May. They have lectures and teaching sessions to educate students and citizens about the events that did happen in May 1918, all of those who died in these lynchings, and larger stories of just ongoing racial injustice.
Right.
They helped gain support for a state historical marker to be installed. On May 15th, 2010, a historical marker memorializing Mary Turner and the lynching rampage was placed near the site in Lowndes County and dedicated to Mary. The plaque includes a description of the associated murders of Black people by white mobs. And this is really fucked up. In July of 2013, just a few years after it was placed there, the plaque was found to have 5 bullet holes shot by an unknown vandal. So yes, it is still alive and well, racial discrimination and just hate in Lowndes County, Georgia. Since 2013, it continued to get shot at and at one point had 27 bullet holes in it. It was also struck multiple times by some kind of vehicle trying to knock it down.
Oh my God.
These people.
Well, to make anybody happy right now, Donald Trump's wax figure
Was
had to be
punched.
removed because it kept being damaged.
I love it. They said people kept punching it in San Antonio.
Right.
Mark Patrick George, coordinator for the Mary Turner Project, announced in October 2020 that they were removing, this makes me sad, the historical marker because it just kept getting vandalized.
That's so fucking ridiculous. It's probably the grandchildren of whoever was part of that day.
Of those gross ass people.
Yeah.
Project officials said the historical marker will be restored at some point, and they are trying to figure out reinstallment plans to keep it safe.
They need to make it something massive that can't be damaged, like a 10-foot boulder. Just something to memorialize her that can't be hurt.
Yes, because hateful people just want to go after this.
I know
There would be many other lynchings after Mary Turner's, unfortunately, but her harrowing tale remains a painful open wound for many, especially in Georgia.
absolutely.
She became a symbol to the Black community there.
The story, though, it's
It's-
hard and sad because this still happens in Congo. Women are,
Oh my God.
the babies are taken out of
It's
women
so-
there the same way. It's still very prevalent in other areas.
Just so everyone knows, if you live in Georgia, you can be proud of a record, and that is that Georgia has the highest rate of lynchings in the nation. And much like Germany would like to forget the Holocaust, Georgia society wants to forget this history of lynching Black people. And I don't think they should have that right because it's still happening there and they're still voting that way today. Obviously, they can't even handle a marker memorializing a woman that was taken from this world in a horrific way for no fucking reason.
And that's why movements like Black Lives Matter is so important because
Yes.
it's these movements that keeps the information
Out there.
current. Just in Ohio, there was, I don't remember what education board it is. It was for a particular school. 2 women on the board are trying to literally throw out the entire history book from this school because they feel like the history paints white men and Donald Trump in a bad light.
That's because they are in a bad light.
Yes.
You can't erase things because you don't
No.
like it.
I know.
You need to face it and say, we're going to be better.
Yep.
But we're not there yet.
No, we're not. And you're going to see especially why we are not there next week. Ugh.
Sorry to bring it down, but it just feels
Oh,
like a
it's
relevant
necessary.
story to talk about today.
It's necessary. And you like us because we bring it down. So I don't know if the next story is going to be good or bad, but I am assuming interesting at least. I have not read it
We love our listener stories because we never know.
unless we accidentally read it. We do sometimes. Sorry, guys. We do know sometimes.
We try to keep it a surprise, but
I know.
yes. What we don't do is read each other. So it's
No.
always a surprise
Yes,
for whoever's
exactly.
listening.
Okay. This is titled living with her. And I just thought that was intriguing.
Very intriguing.
Says, hello, my favorite podcast duo. Thank you for being my secret best friends, which sounds kind of creepy considering the story I'm about to tell you, but I promise I am the sane one.
Okay.
I just love you and can't wait for a new episode each week. I got into listening to true crime podcasts after something happened to me, which is what I'm about to tell you.
Oh, okay.
I laugh at myself constantly for it because you'd think I would want to stay away from things that remind me of it. Instead, I became the cliche true crime girly and can't get enough of it now.
Welcome to the club.
It is soothing for me, but I am still traumatized. So here is my story.
Well, thank you for writing in about your trauma.
Yes, let's share our trauma and learn from it, grow.
Yes.
Even though my co-star said, do not place your trauma onto anyone else yesterday. I never thought that a roommate situation could spiral into something terrifying.
Ooh.
But then again, I never thought I'd be in my 30s living alone in a condo that I couldn't afford anymore because I just lost one of my contracts.
Oh.
I'd been doing freelance work for a while outside of my regular office job, but it just wasn't enough to cover the bills. So like many others in my position, I turned to Craigslist to find a roommate.
Lots of us might have to do that soon in America, so this might scare me.
Yes, it's very scary, actually. Now more than ever, I think it's okay to live with your parents again if they'll let you.
Yes, I agree.
Her name was Erin, and she seemed nice enough when we met. She was in her early 30s like me and had recently moved to the city for a new job. Her resume checked out. She had good references, and when she came to see the condo, she was charming, polite, clean, and even offered to help me bring in some of my groceries that I had left in the car. She said that she could only agree to a month-to-month lease.
Okay.
I didn't want that. I needed more security, but she was willing to pay more than I was originally planning on offering it.
Okay, that's, yeah.
I was desperate for extra cash and to keep the place, so I agreed to let her move in. It was a perfect arrangement at first. She kept to herself mostly, worked long hours, and we exchanged pleasantries when we crossed paths. For the first couple of months, I thought maybe I'd lucked out. Erin was a bit quiet, but she paid her share on time, and I never had to worry about her causing trouble. But then little things started happening.
Uh-oh.
It was subtle at first. One evening, I came home to find that an expensive bottle of wine that I had shipped back from Italy and was saving for a very special occasion was missing.
No, girl.
Erin was in the kitchen when I walked in, humming as she was chopping some vegetables, and I asked about the wine, and she seemed genuinely confused.
Okay.
She said she had never seen the bottle and that she doesn't drink, that she would never just welcome herself to my things. So I let it go, chalking it up to a simple mistake. After all, it wasn't like I could accuse her of stealing it without proof.
Right.
Although I did check the recycling and trash after.
See if you can find the bottle at least.
And I couldn't find the bottle anywhere. But things started adding up. Little inconsistencies, odd behavior. She started to leave notes for me when I came home from work. Notes that seemed off.
Okay.
For instance, one day it said, I noticed you didn't eat lunch today. I packed you a sandwich. It's in the fridge.
I mean, that seems nice
I
at
know.
first, but you're like, we don't really know each. What did you put in the sandwich?
It was sweet in a way, but also a little too controlling.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't ask her to do any of that, and I certainly didn't need her to monitor my eating habits.
No.
It would be one thing if I knew her for a long time and she felt like a really good friend or a sister, but even after a few months of living together, we were strangers.
Yeah.
Still, I didn't want to seem ungrateful, so I thanked her. But after a while of it happening, I started to avoid her lunch notes, simply to avoid the awkwardness.
Mm-hmm.
But then she noticed that I wasn't eating what she left behind for me and confronted me about it.
Oh, shit.
It was an awkward conversation, but ended in me telling her not to do it anymore. She seemed hurt by it, but agreed to stop.
Or you just start taking the food and throwing it away.
Right? But then it would continue.
I know, and it's a waste.
I asked in the nicest way, but I was on edge about her. Eating her food just felt
Scary.
Yeah,
like
off.
what's in that food?
After that, things got worse. I came home one night to find my bedroom door slightly ajar.
No.
At first, I thought I had just forgotten to close it, but something about it felt wrong. I glanced around the room and it hit me. My dresser drawer was open. Not only that, one of my journals was gone.
Oh, God.
I searched through the room. My heart was pounding because there's some shit in that no one needs to read, but I couldn't find it.
I don't want anyone looking at my journal except me.
The next morning, Erin was in the living room when I walked into the kitchen, sipping her coffee as though everything was normal. I asked her as casually as I could muster if she'd been in my room.
Yeah.
She smiled, a kind of smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. I can't explain it. And she says, oh no, I've just been busy with work. But she asked me if everything was okay. And I didn't want to accuse her directly, but there isn't a ghost taking my things.
No.
She is literally the only other person there. So that night I stayed up late waiting for her to go to bed. She worked strange hours and I knew her schedule by now. But I got tired and turned off the lights, and I watched through the crack in my door as Erin quietly slipped into my room.
Oh, fuck no.
I couldn't believe it. My own roommate was snooping through my things while she thought I was asleep.
That's a whole nother level.
Yes, that creeps me out.
Right? Like people watching me sleep and like that kind of shit. No.
I know. I felt so violated, but too scared to confront her right then and there in the dark. Because who the fuck does that?
A creeper.
When I confronted her the next morning, she denied everything.
Of course, because she's a sociopath.
She said, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I'd never go through your stuff. Though there was a certain coldness in her tone that sent chills down my spine.
Ugh.
She told me I must have been dreaming. She said that she noticed that I had been quite forgetful lately and that I needed to chill out. And that infuriated me.
At least she's on a month to month. That's when you're like, get the fuck out.
Right? Exactly. But money. Damn, we do a lot for money, don't we?
No.
I waited until she left the next day and I went into her room to look for my things. I found a small cardboard Amazon box under her bed, and inside it was my journal, one of my combs, and a t-shirt of mine.
Ugh.
One that I didn't even realize was missing. I admittedly have way too many t-shirts, but what the actual fuck?
She's like cuddling up with the t-shirt.
I don't know.
What's she doing with the comb?
Well, that gives me voodoo vibes, right?
Oh, I was thinking single white female, like she's going to become her.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know what to do. We were both grown adults. Why the heck was she doing this? I was really confused and scared.
Yeah.
But damn it, I needed the money.
Oh, okay.
My mortgage was coming up and I had no other way to pay it, and I needed her share. So I just took my stuff back and didn't say anything to her about it. And she didn't say anything to me.
But she knows you took it.
I know. So we both seemed to, without verbally agreeing to it, to just kind of let it go.
Okay.
But it didn't stop there. Over the following weeks, Erin's behavior grew more unsettling. She started following me when I went out.
Oh.
Not like literally tailing me, but she started turning up in places that I went, whether it was the cafe down the street or the grocery store.
No.
And I couldn't shake the feeling that she was just watching me and that she knew exactly where I was at all times. I couldn't tell anyone, though. I didn't have proof of anything. No one would believe me that my quiet, friendly roommate was stalking me.
Yeah, that sounds kind of crazy.
So I started avoiding her as much as possible, staying at work late, leaving early, anything to escape having to interact with her. But it only escalated. I had a friend that stopped by while I was out. She was bringing me a gift from a trip that she went on. She called me after an interaction with Erin. She said that she seemed pissed that she had showed up at our house. She was quite rude to my friend and told her that she needed to call me before she just showed up.
Okay.
She gave Erin the gift to give to me. She wanted to let me know because she didn't trust her to actually give it to me.
Mm-mm.
And sure enough, when I got home, I found my friend's gift in the kitchen trash can.
Oh my God.
I did confront her about it, and she just shrugged her shoulders and said that my friend was rude to her and she threw it in there out of annoyance, that she was going to get it out after she calmed down but forgot to.
It's not your right.
And that it wasn't a big deal.
It was.
I made it clear that I felt like she was overstepping boundaries, and we didn't talk to each other for a couple of days. But a few days after that, after a particularly long work day, I came home to a dark house. As I walked through the door, I heard the sound of heavy breathing coming from the living room, and my stomach dropped. Erin was sitting on the couch with the lights off. I only saw her because she took a drag from her vape and it lit up her face. Straight from a scary movie.
Yeah.
I jumped and said, Erin, what are you doing?
Why are you sitting in the dark?
She didn't respond immediately, but then quietly said in a tone I could barely hear, I know everything about you. I've been keeping track. I know your routine. I know what you like. I know what you don't like.
Okay. And you need to go now.
Do you want to date me?
Or wear my skin?
I couldn't breathe. My heart raced in my chest and I had to fight the urge to run. I pretended to kind of laugh it off and asked her what the hell she was talking about. And she said, I've been waiting.
Oh, no.
Waiting for you to see me.
See you what?
Naked.
Are you just in love with me? Like, we can talk through this.
That's when I realized that this just wasn't a normal roommate situation.
No.
This was something darker. I officially freaked out and I didn't want to waste another second of being around her. I pretended that I was just confused and tired and told her goodnight. I went to my room and shut the door. I did not go to sleep though. I packed a bag, grabbed my phone, and texted my mom to let her know what was happening. I didn't even care about the condo at that point. It didn't matter. I just couldn't stay there another second.
No.
I didn't confront her. I didn't give her a chance to explain. I just left. I spent the night in a hotel, and the next morning I called the police.
Good.
They told me there wasn't enough evidence to press charges on anything, but they did a welfare check on her. Apparently she wasn't home when they first arrived, but they went back later that afternoon and she was there. And when they spoke to her, she claimed that she was just misunderstood.
Okay.
But I didn't care anymore. I knew I had to get out and I wasn't going back until she was gone. It was a week until the end of the month. I drafted up the proper paperwork and I had it delivered, telling her that I was not going to renew the next month for her and that she needed to leave. And she did. Erin never came back to the condo, but after a few weeks, I was still on edge and felt like I was going to...
That's when you go get a big, huge, scary dog.
Yeah. I felt like she was going to break in and do something. So I decided it was time for me to move. Couldn't afford it anyway. And there was no way I was going to get another roommate.
No.
I did love my condo. It was an accomplishment for me to get, and she ruined it for me.
Fuck that girl.
I know.
Usually we're saying fuck that guy.
I know. Well, wherever it's due, I guess.
Yeah.
I managed to get the place sold with the help of my family, and I moved into a new apartment, one that felt safe, where I could breathe again. But there's still something I can't shake. A few weeks before everything spiraled out of control, I had to leave town for a work trip. It was just 3 days, and I had been stressing out about leaving my cat Momo behind. But I knew I'd be back before anything could happen. I'd left her with Erin,
Oh, no.
who had promised to take care of her while I was gone. Erin said she was good with animals. Momo didn't seem to have an opinion of her. She kind of just pretended that she wasn't even there, and she would stay in my room most of the time, so I didn't think anything of it really. All she had to do was make sure her food and water bowls were full.
Yeah, cats are easy.
And it was only for 3 days. But when I came back, Momo was gone.
Oh my God. No. Don't mess with my cat.
Seriously. At first, I thought she'd slip through the door somehow. Momo did have a habit of doing that if someone left open a crack, but she'd never run away for good.
Right.
She'd always come back the same day and usually within the hour. But this time was different. Momo didn't come back. That night, I started to panic. When I asked Erin if she had seen her, she told me she's probably just hiding. Cats do that. You know how they are.
Not your own cat. Doesn't hide
Right.
from you all day.
Although when you were watching my cat while I was gone on the trip, you couldn't find her, remember? And you're like, Saphira.
But she wasn't hiding.
She's just like, why is this lady screaming at me?
She had sat on my office chair. My cats love my office chair for some reason, and Saphira did too. And it's all black, and she was sleeping.
Yeah.
And she literally blended in with my office chair.
And then she's just like, God, who's making all that
And then
noise?
she was like, meow. And I was like, oh, there you are. She had moved. She had always been in other places.
Yeah. I searched the condo for hours, every crevice calling her name, knocking on neighbors' doors. I posted flyers the next day, but nothing. Erin stayed in her room, never offering to help me. It was as if she wasn't concerned. A week passed and still no Momo. I was devastated. When I couldn't take the crushing guilt anymore, I asked Erin again if she let her out.
Yeah.
She just stared at me for a moment and said, you know, sometimes things just disappear. Maybe Momo wasn't meant to stay.
What the fuck? Fuck that girl.
That is when it actually hit me that Erin wasn't just involved. Like, she was lying. I don't know what she did to Momo, but I can't shake the feeling that she either let her out on purpose or worse.
Oh my God.
It's something I've never been able to fully accept, and it still haunts me, and I'll never know the truth. But I do know one thing. Living with Erin was the worst mistake of my life.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the feeling of being watched, of being stalked, of knowing that someone could invade your space in such a chilling, controlled way. I don't think Erin was just a roommate. I think she was something far darker, and I was lucky to get away when I did.
Yes.
I can only hope Momo found her way out of whatever hell Erin created for her a good family found her and she's being loved somewhere.
Let's all hope that.
And I can only hope that Erin, wherever the fuck she is, doesn't find her way back into my life.
She's in the 7th layer of hell.
If you're ever in a situation like mine, don't wait until it's too late. Trust me, you'll thank yourself for it. Thank you for listening to my crazy story, ladies. Stay lucid. Kendall.
Wow. That's so scary. Like, I think if I was in that situation, I would never want to have someone live with me again. You'd be traumatized.
I never want anyone to live with me, period, because I've heard stories like this.
Yeah.
I could never have a stranger live with me.
It would have to be
ever.
someone I've known for years.
Right.
Or my kids.
Yep. Someone that I knew I could fight with and then we would get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's another thing is I grew up with older friends and I witnessed a lot of them move in with each other.
Yes. And then they fall out.
They were just kind of friends. So it wasn't strong enough for them to like make it through. And then they just hated each other.
Yes. I saw that as well.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm never doing that.
No, it's not worth it. Living with someone is very different than just being friends with them. And you have to have the same rhythms.
It has
there's
to
so
be
much.
Literally like your sister, someone that no matter what you guys do, you can make it through.
Even your romantic partner. Like many people's relationships fall apart when they move in together because you realize that you're not in sync like that.
Right.
It's tough.
Scary. Well, thank you for writing in, Kendall. I'm glad that she left and didn't cause more of a situation for you.
She's probably off stalking someone else.
She probably found a new victim,
I'm
which
trying
is
to
scary.
think like what psychological disorder it is. But I saw some statistics because I watched that baby reindeer.
Oh yeah,
about that girl.
Yeah.
And I got into like a wormhole. I always say wormhole. A rabbit hole.
I mean, it doesn't matter. A squirrel hole,
but some kind of hole.
Prairie dog hole, ground squirrel.
Ground squirrel. You sent me that picture while you were in California.
Yeah.
Of just the incidence of stalking.
Right.
And it's pretty scary statistics out there. Like there's more than you would think. And we ended up with 2 listener stories today that kind of involved that.
I guess. I mean, yeah, she lived with her, but that's even scarier.
Yeah, you let somebody in. I had one roommate when I was in college. I lived with a very good friend that I knew, but she went off to student teaching and we still had 3 months left in our lease and I had to bring a stranger in to pay that part.
Oh no.
She only lived there for 3 months, but fortunately that didn't happen.
Oh,
she was
good.
fine, but we didn't get along great. She was more of a party girl and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I didn't like that, having to like find a stranger to just move in for money again.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful who you live with. It's scary out there.
It is. We are in the bad place, as we have said multiple times off air today.
Yes, we are.
Well, thank you for listening to this lab report. We hope you enjoyed it. Come back next week for my episode.
And in the meantime,
stay lucid. Go have a green beer.
Or you should have already. You're probably hungover now.
Well, then they need it. What is it?
Hair of the dog.
Hair of the dog. I can't remember what episode, but remember you taught me what that meant.
We're always learning.
Top of the morning to you. Goodbye.
Bye.